You may have heard it said that most people don't get paid for their hours or their effort. They get paid for the problems they solve. And that's why problem solving appears almost on all lists of the top soft skills that professionals should have. Problem solving is rarely a solo act. It usually happens in meetings and in teams. So if you want to improve your problem solving skills, you will need to work better with other people while solving problems. By the way, this is part 3 in a series on the top soft skills that all professionals should have. I'll put links to each part as I post them and the expandable description below the video. The key message for this video is that great problem solvers don't dominate the conversation pushing their solution. They facilitate the conversation with intention. And here are 4 concrete behaviors you can start using immediately to improve your problem-solving skills at work, plus a bonus skill at the end, which is perhaps the most important problem-solving skill of all. Tip 1 is to define the problem before you try to solve it. Most teams move too quickly into solution mode. It's one of the most natural things I've ever seen is to hear a problem and immediately start suggesting possible fixes. But strong problem solvers pause and ask, what exactly is the problem? What outcome are we trying to achieve? Are we solving the root problem, or is this just a symptom? If the problem is poorly defined, the solution will be off target. A team member says, we need to improve communication. Now they're pointing to a problem, but it's too vague to solve effectively. It leaves too many questions. Communication between whom? What's the actual breakdown? You can add clarity to the conversation by defining the problem. You can ask, can we take a step back and define the problem more clearly? What does success look like if we solve this? Simple questions like this sharpen the focus of the conversation by getting everybody on the same page. Tip 2, slow down to understand the root cause. One classic problem-solving mistake is to talk about the symptoms or the surface-level issues without digging deeper to reach the root of the problem. Strong problem solvers dig down a few layers. They ask, is this a symptom or a root problem? What's driving this issue? What changed recently? For example, a surface-level problem or symptomatic outcome might be, we ran out of time. But by asking some clarifying questions, you may discover that the root problem was that the project had an unclear ownership situation from the start. If you clarify the ownership of future projects, it's very likely the deadlines won't be much of a problem. One traditional method of digging deeper is by asking what's called the 5 whys. This was originally created by Toyota almost 100 years ago. And the idea is to look at a problem and then ask why questions that dig 5 layers deep until you hit rock bottom. Why was this key deadline missed? And the answer might be because component parts were not completed on time. Why did that happen? Because several team members were unclear about their individual responsibilities. Why were team members unclear about their responsibilities? The project timeline and task ownership were not clearly communicated at the start. Why was the timeline and ownership not clearly communicated? There was no structured kickoff or centralized project to align the team. Why was there no structured kickoff or centralized plan? Because no one person was assigned ownership of the entire project. That process gives the team the focus they need to solve the real problem next time by making sure one specific leader is assigned ownership over the entire project. If you try to solve problems 1 through 4 in that chain, you'd only be trying to solve a downstream symptom of not having one person in charge from the start. In many cases, you won't have to go down all 5 layers deep to hit rock bottom, but complex issues benefit from drilling all the way down. Number 3, structure the conversation instead of letting it wander. In group settings, conversations can become chaotic. People jump all over the place, talk in circles, and get off topic. An open, free-flowing conversation might even feel good in the moment for some team members, but research shows that those discussions don't predictably progress toward effective solutions. Strong problem solvers communicate an explicit structure to the conversation. They suggest a stepwise process that the group can follow. An ineffective way to start a group problem-solving discussion might be saying something like, let's all go around the room and share our thoughts. Now that sounds good on the surface, but that's rarely enough structure to make actual progress. Instead of an open-ended prompt like that, you could say, let's break this into 3 parts. Identify the root causes, brainstorm lots of options, and weigh the pros and cons of our best options. Now, one quick caveat, suggesting a process to follow will be seen as a leadership behavior. And if it were me and I was not the leader in the room at the moment, I would give the leader a few moments in the conversation to add more focus. But if they don't, and it seems like the conversation's drifting, then you might recommend that problem-solving structure to follow. And if you're not sure if the leader in the room might receive that suggestion well, then ask it as a question. Would it be helpful if we broke this conversation into 3 parts to identify the root causes, brainstorm lots of options, and weigh the pros and the cons of our best? Asking it as a question is a lower risk move. The point is, if you verbalize your problem-solving thought process once in a while, people will quickly begin to recognize that's one of your strengths. Tip 4, invite and integrate other perspectives. As mentioned at the top, the best solutions rarely come from one person, but team problem solving only works if people feel free to speak up, when they listen actively, and when they build on each other's ideas. So you can multiply your effectiveness as a team problem solver by asking people, how does this look from your perspective? What are we missing? Does anyone see this differently? What risks haven't we considered? And when someone contributes, acknowledge it and build on it. One key mistake people make is to point out what's wrong with an idea too early in the process. Maybe you have seen this process yourself. Somebody in the group offers an idea, and the next person to speak shoots it down. Another person offers an idea, and again, another person shoots it down. That pattern destroys a group's ability to solve problems because it short-circuits the process. The tip is to spend generous amounts of time inviting others to contribute and encouraging them to speak up. That's the way you get as many perspectives on the table as you can throughout the problem-solving process. And now for the bonus tip. Tip 5 is research shows that perhaps the most valuable thing you can do to increase the effectiveness of group problem solving is to prevent bad, inadequate solutions and decisions from moving forward. Randy Hirakawa from the University of Hawaii Hilo has been studying group decision-making and problem-solving for decades, and he has shown that one of the key factors that separates effective and ineffective teams is that the best groups are better at identifying solutions that will not work. Ineffective groups may put too much emphasis on harmony, on collaboration. Now, those are obviously important parts of a group, but the best groups test ideas rigorously. They aren't afraid of a little conversational friction. They make sure that somebody in the group is playing the devil's advocate. They make sure they point out all of the possible downsides of a decision. That's part of the required process they go through. And this prevents bad decisions from moving forward. The key takeaway here for you is to make sure you and your team stress test possible solutions instead of just letting the most popular one move forward without a challenge. Here's a recap of these problem-solving skills. You can do these things consistently, and if you do that, you'll stand out immediately as someone who's good at solving problems. Remember, this is not an individual skill, it's a team sport. And if you get better at it, you'll be the most valuable member of that team and you'll be seen as a leader. As mentioned, this is part 3 in a series on the top soft skills that all professionals should have. I'll paste links to every single part in the description below as I post them. Until next time, thanks, God bless. See you soon.